Swan Lake, a ballet. Act 1, the birthday eve. Long ago, in a far-off land, where magic spells were as natural as the wind, there lived a queen and her son, Prince Sifred. Their lives were happy, yet the once cheerful prince had become somber. He knew that on his 21st birthday he would have to choose a wife and leave behind the playful times of his youth. As that day neared, the thought of his future responsibilities as king weighed heavily upon him. For months, the royal household had been preparing an extravagant birthday party, and the kingdom bustled with last-minute preparations. The ballroom floor was polished to a high gloss. The royal gardeners filled massive silver urns with flowers. The royal bakers warmed up the ovens, and guests from far finally reached the end of their long journey to the castle. On the day before his birthday, Sifred tried to enjoy his last carefree hours with his friends. They gathered around him, hoping to lift his spirits with song and dance. His best friend, Benno, presented him with a birthday gift, an exquisite crossbow. Sifred loved it. He ran his hand over the smooth surface and thanked Benno deeply. The dancing and merriment continued as the friends raised a toast to the prince's good health and happy future. As dusk settled, the others wandered home, leaving Sifred alone with Benno. The two friends noticed a flock of swans crossing the darkening forest. The sight of the graceful birds gave Sifred a bewildering feeling of happiness mixed with sadness. He gripped his new crossbow and followed their path. It led the friends to a glistening lake. Act 2, the swans on the lake. Night began to fall. Deep shadows and bright moonlight dappled the forest, and a curious owl lurked above. The lake was illuminated like a precious jewel. Only the soft lapping of water could be heard. Drawn to the sound, Sifred wandered away from Benno. The same group of swans was now gliding along the glassy surface of the lake. Sifred raised the crossbow and took aim. He held his breath. As the birds neared the shore, Sifred noticed that the first swan wore a tiny gold crown. Intrigued by the strange sight, he put down his bow and stared as the swan came closer and closer. And then, as if stepping out of a dream, it gently unfolded its wings and turned into a beautiful young woman. The prince was stunned. Gracefully, the woman rose out of the water and stood before him. Her name was Princess Odette. With a sigh, she began to tell him her sad tale. Many years ago, an evil sorcerer named Count von Rothbart had placed a spell on Odette and the maidens who attended her. At the first light of morning, they were transformed into swans. When night fell, they were maidens again. To prevent their escape, Rothbart became a menacing owl watching their every move. The only thing that could free Odette from Rothbart's power was the promise of eternal love by someone who had never loved before. What a terrible plight, Sifred thought. Odette was so beautiful and yet so sad. How could he leave her and her maidens in this mournful place? And so, with a brave and true heart, he swore to love her forever. At the sound of these words, the youngest of the swan maidens joined hands and danced in the clearing. The moon smiled down on them, and Odette felt a new sense of hope for herself and her loyal friends. A growing feeling of love and trust for the prince had lightened her heavy heart, and now it was the swan maidens' turn to watch as this charming couple danced together. Sifred could hardly bear the thought of leaving Odette, but he had to depart for the castle. The swan maidens were now dancing with such high spirits that he felt sure all would be well. With a final promise to return and free Odette, he ran back through the forest, his heart full of joy. All was not peaceful, though. Hidden in a tangle of branches, the owl sat as still and silent as stone. It was Rothbart. He had seen everything. Act 3, the birthday ball. The following evening, guardsmen unfurled the royal banners and the castle doors were opened wide. The ballroom filled with beautiful maidens waiting to catch a glimpse of the prince. Dancers in dazzling costumes flocked to entertain him. The room glowed with candlelight and crystal. Excitement hung in the air. Prince Sifred received the guests solemnly, the queen at his side, but no amount of music or gaiety could clear his mind of his beloved Odette. How he wished she was beside him. Later in the evening, a blare of trumpets interrupted the festivities. All heads turned and whispers spread as the mysterious couple dressed in black arrived. At closer look, Seyfried gasped. The young woman on the gentleman's arm was Odette. How could this be possible? And who was her strange companion? When the prince's eyes met hers, a sudden wind rattled the windows of the ballroom. The curious gentleman bowed deeply before the queen and introduced his daughter, Odile. Puzzled by this different name, Seyfried searched her perfect face. His heart pounded. He was certain it was the lovely princess he had met the night before. Odile took her place with the other ladies in the court as the musicians resumed the evening's entertainment. Spanish dancers charged the ballroom floor, the clicking of their castanets filling the air, followed by Polish dancers who whirled about in bright costumes. Their high spirits swept the room. When the music slowed, Odile stepped to the center of the ballroom and reached out for the prince to dance with her. He joined her without hesitation, and the two moved together with graceful ease. As the violin soared, the prince thought his heart would burst with happiness. Even the musicians could feel the magic of the moment and began to play exuberantly. Now Odile danced with a confidence and vivacity that surprised and delighted the prince. She leaped and twirled across the floor with a dance of pure joy. When the music ended, the guests cheered and the prince rushed to tell his mother the news she was waiting for. The beauty was to be his wife. But the moment Seyfried slipped the engagement ring on Odile's finger, lightning flashed and thunder shook the palace. He turned to see a vision of Odette, shimmering in the ballroom window. Terrified, she beat her wings wildly against the glass. In an instant, everything was clear. The mysterious guest was Rothbart. He had disguised his wicked daughter, Odile, to look exactly like Odette. Seyfried's promise of eternal love was now broken, and poor Odette would be trapped as a swan forever. The evil pair roared with laughter over the success of their sinister plot, and vanished from the scene, leaving the ballroom in chaos. Seyfried could only stand there, frozen in horror. Act 4. The Return to the Lake. A broken-hearted Odette fled back to the lake. She stared at the water and wondered how she could possibly continue her life there. Even her swan maidens could not console her now that all hope seemed lost. Filled with sadness and regret, the prince staggered from the castle and into the forest. He had to explain to Odette that he had been tricked by Odile. When he reached the lake, he drew Odette close and begged her to forgive him. Could this heart really be pure, she wondered. As she gazed at him, she saw the truth in his eyes and sensed his pain. Suddenly, a shadow fell over them, and they turned to see a furious Rothbart. Disguised again as the wicked owl, he lunged forward and separated the pair, caught in his tight clutch. Odette knew that as long as Rothbart was alive, she would never be truly free. She struggled from his cruel grip and leaped into the lake. There, she slipped beneath the surface where darkness and silence gave her immediate comfort. Seyfried's heart filled with dread. Without hesitation, he dived into the water. He had to save Odette, but Rothbart was right behind him. The prince turned to seize him, but the villainous owl descended on the prince in a smothering rage. Seyfried could feel the evil bird's weight pushing him under the water. He encircled the feathering brute with his aching arms and pulled with all his strength. The creature's wings snapped at once, and its screech shook the forest as it sank into the swirling lake. At long last, the wicked spell was broken, and the lake turned smooth as glass once again. But was it too late for Seyfried and Odette? The prince peered at the sullen sky, too exhausted to move, as an unearthly mist began to blanket the forest. Then he heard a quiet lapping on the water. An eerie trail of moonlight lit a path on the lake for a beautiful swan with a tiny crown. Filled with love and relief, Seyfried watched as Odette swam toward him once again, just as she had the first time they met. In the thick fog that shrouded the lake, only a silhouette of the young couple could be seen. When it lifted, they were nowhere to be found. There was only the mellow murmur of the water. For many years, the people of the kingdom wondered about the handsome Prince Seyfried and the beautiful Odette, who were never seen again. On moonlit nights, was it their reflections people imagined on the lake? Was it their soft footsteps resounding in the forest, or only falling raindrops? Was it their whispers, or just the rustling wind across the fields? One thing is sure, They were united in love that evening on Swan Lake, never to be separated again.